hey, don't buy this hair growth vitamin. And then they'll explain why you should buy it, and people love it because it's a little bit controversial, right?
Yeah.
So
what did that kind of look like in terms of from sales?
I think in our space, June is like the worst seasonal month. So in June, we did about 4.5 million on TikTok shops. We would look for like what creators were a brand fit, what their content was like. Today, we look at marketing as 3 buckets, and that's affiliate, our marketing spend or our ad spend, and then like if you're a small brand, you should look for small creators that have like a very little bit of traction that you can grow together with. We try hard not to judge because you just never know what's going to be great and you don't want to limit the brand from that. The thing that sells these days the best is just being real.
Okay, Jay, so for everyone who doesn't know who you are, what Mary Roose is, please go ahead, introduce yourself so everyone can kind of get to grips in terms of how deep we're going to go in terms of TikTok shop and everything.
Yeah, for sure. I'm Jay Hunter, Chief Revenue Officer at Mary Roose. We're a vitamin supplement brand. We're primarily known for our liquid vitamins, which is sort of like a unique form factor. And, for us, we really pride ourselves on just having products for every life stage. So, we got products for infants all the way up to 40 plus and everywhere in between.
Amazing. Perfect. That sounds good. And with that being said, obviously everyone knows the CRO, but how deep do you kind of go in terms of the day-to-day, especially like say we're going to talk about TikTok shop? How does your role in terms of what you do day-to-day kind of like merge into the TikTok shop kind of strategy and all that good ecosystem?
Yeah, I would say we got a unique org at Mary Roose, but today I oversee all our e-com sales, which is still about 80% of all revenue for the business. Amazon's still our largest channel. We've got a nice D2C website. And then, TikTok shop's fastest growing channel for us. Also includes some of our international business, our other smaller marketplaces like Walmart or Target or Thrive Market. And then I also oversee all of marketing and analytics. So, paid media, influencers, organic social. And then I'm very big on data. So I've got a great analytics team. I think these days I have about 272 Tableau dashboards to see every metric under the sun.
You're busy. You're very busy by the sounds of things there.
Always, yeah.
Amazing. Cool. So obviously June's just wrapped up. If you could, like say, now we're going to break it down TikTok shop. You can obviously give us a range or give us the exact. What did you kind of do Mary Roose numbers for TikTok shop in June?
Yeah, so in June we did about 4.5 million on TikTok shops, which is pretty good for us. I think in our space, June is like the worst seasonal month, right? Everyone just getting out of school, everyone's going on holiday. A lot of people aren't sticking to their vitamin routine necessarily. So we did about 4.5 million in gross sales, which for us is good. We run the channel very profitably. We're usually trying to target about a 22 to 28% contribution margin and trying to keep that healthy. So yeah, it was a good month in June. We think July is going to be a lot better. We're part of TikTok's Deal For You days. So they have like a sort of a big super brand day happening right now, sort of to compete with Amazon Prime Day. And I think we're already seeing sales in the first couple of days like really strong. So feel good about July.
Amazing. Perfect. That's good. So that's what you're doing now. So let's kind of rewind back. Because again, obviously we're going to have people who are listening who are kind of starting, looking to scale and everything in between. And again, especially you mentioned there about profitability and stuff like that. So let's kind of rewind back in terms of when you kind of got started on TikTok shop. When did you guys launch? Do you remember the date?
I think we launched October or November of 23, but we didn't do anything with TikTok shops till about February of 2024. No one on the team knew anything about TikTok shops. So we really had to get scrappy and try to learn the strategy all by ourselves. A lot of the things that worked well on marketplaces like Amazon or elsewhere also worked well on TikTok shops. We knew how to optimize listings pretty good. We had great content. We knew how to run ads. I think the piece that was unique about TikTok shops when we launched that we really had to figure out is like it's heavily driven by micro creators, maybe, more so than macro creators. And so just the early days were us figuring out how could we reach a lot of those micro creators at scale and then like build onto those partnerships. And I think now we have like a really great flow for that. So I feel a lot better.
How do you kind of go about finding back then the creators? Again, obviously it's completely different, like fast forward now, but what was kind of the go-to strategy and what kind of numbers were you looking in terms of how many creators you were finding, how many samples in that first kind of initial 30 days?
Yeah, the first iteration was very manual. So the team would go and like we would look for like what creators were a brand fit, what their content was like, was the content pretty polished? Like when we first started, like that was the strategy. I think we quickly found like those creators, like the cost of the creators and like to have the right partnership where the economics work for both parties was like a little bit tough. So in the early days, we partnered with a very early TikTok bot for creator outreach called Hive IQ. And they, essentially their bot would reach out to like 200 to 400 creators a day for us. And it would just reach out to any creator, right? It no longer cared about like, what did they look like or were they a brand fit? It We just reach out to all the creators. We'd offer a sample. And I think what that taught us though in the early days was like the message to the creator was very important, right? Like we tried a ton of different iterations on like how to make a message that, was coming from a bot, but felt authentic, right? Like, hey, we saw your video. We loved it. We'd love for you to talk about this product of ours. This is why we think, some creators that have worked with us have earned $1,000 or $2,000. We think you could too, right? And we try to create something that was like a reasonable amount of money that someone could earn as like, if TikTok's their side gig, and it made sense. And like that, I think that sort of authentic messaging really helped us start cracking into creators. So we started low. I think today, we use YukaBot for our bot outreach, and we're doing, 3,000 outreaches a day. So the scale has certainly improved. But I think in the early days, it was very similar, just at a smaller scale.
Yeah, amazing. And I like the way you mentioned terms like you are still doing outreach, because I think sometimes brands feel like once you kind of get to that level and scale, you don't need to. But the fact you're still kind of like still have to do the outreach and still obviously looking for creators is obviously a part of how it kind of runs, right? Do you think it's essential to still be doing outreach right now? Because I guess obviously you still probably get a lot of people just requesting samples as well, just because obviously of the brand and obviously like I said, being one of the top brands on TikTok Shop.
Yeah, so we're still running, the YukaBot today. We still reach out to 3,000 creators every day. I think we also still do some manual outreach. So like the bot pretty much, eventually will hit everyone on earth. But I think a lot of brands today, right, they'll look at some of the top brands, like maybe a Tarte Cosmetics or Goalie, and they'll look at like who are the top creators for those brands, and they'll reach out to them. But I think like there's a misunderstanding or a misconception, like the chance that you're going to steal Goalie's best creator who's likely making a good amount of money is like slim to none, right? Goalie has a great budget, same thing for Tarte or some of these other brands, even myself. And so like I want to go look at like who is Goalie's 507th best creator. That creator maybe likely would also. I also try to look in other categories because, maybe if you're a Goalie fan, you want to be exclusive to Goalie as like a supplement, product or business, and, not picking on Goalie, but like same thing for Tarte or any of these guys. And so for us, like we're a little bit scrappy still on like, okay, there's creators that are generating good GMV, but like who are the middle of the pack creators that we can sort of grow with? And I think that's true for any brand size. Like if you're a small brand, you should look for small creators that have like a very little bit of traction that you can grow together with, right? Like very tough for founders, but you need to be objective, like where you deserve to win, right? You don't have the budget or the product performance to work with some of these top creators, right? You should work with the creators that are a bit smaller and grow with them. And honestly, that's going to not only be successful from a sales perspective, but also a lot more profitable, right? Because the rate at the maybe a smaller creator is going to be a lot more affordable.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. No, appreciate the breaking down. And going back to Scrappy, so again, that first initial month, do you remember roughly how many samples you were kind of sending out and what kind of your outreach was going out and kind of how many samples you were looking to kind of hit and how many you were sending out in that first kind of initial period?
Yeah, I think in the very early days, like maybe January, February time when we started in 2024, when we started putting some pressure on TikTok shops, I mean, at first we would give away like 50 units a week, maybe, right? So we built into like 200 units a month. But I think it's just been scaling for us. In May, I don't have the June numbers as of yet, but in May, I gave away 9,800 units. So you can see like for the last 18 months, it's really scaled. And I think that's the general, in my opinion, like that's the piece that most brands misunderstand. Is it's not a huge investment of marketing dollars on ads. The amount of product seeding you need to do to get things rolling is like a lot more substantial than a lot of brands, understand or conceptualize. And so I think, when you're thinking about what you need to do in the early days, like you need to give away a lot of products because you need a lot of incoming content, right? The TikTok algorithm, has a short of attention span as people consuming the content. And so it needs a lot of fresh content before you start pumping money on ads or doing other things. So I think we learned that it just built over that long period of time. We used to give away 200 samples. Now we're giving away 10,000 samples,
Wow. Yeah, they're crazy numbers, right? And it's when you think about that, and again, like I say, for any brands that are listening to this now, it kind of gives you paints that pitch in terms of, and again, I'm not saying every brand is going to get to be a top 10 brand, but it kind of gives you that kind of scale in terms of scale. When we speak to a lot of brands, they're always like, oh, if we want to do this, how many samples do we need to be giving out? Are the big brands doing that? You're saying, for example, you are already kind of like say contender for like saying 5 for that top 3 spot, and you're still doing 10,000 samples
for sure,
per month. On like say on a month, that was quite a month for you guys.
I mean, I think, for us, even at our size, right, we're a big business and I understand that, but even for us, like we're very grindy people, right? Like I think like the goal is always, can we give away a few more units tomorrow than we did today?
Yeah.
And if you're small, if you can only afford to give away 20 units this week, that's great. But you want to turn 20 into 30 and 30 into 50 and 50 into 100, right? And like you want to be building your samples out, and that should be coming with additional videos coming in and ideally more sales, right? That's the strategy at any size. It's just, how much marketing budget you have is how fast you can go. It's okay to go a bit slower, right? You just want to make sure you're going in a way that makes sense for you and is profitable for the business. I always recommend you got to be at least 1% profitable on a strategy like this.
Yeah, that's very true. And with that initial kind of, let's say, going back to the 200 samples, what was kind of your expectations at that time? And again, you probably don't remember the numbers you were kind of hitting GMV wise, but what kind of was the range that you were kind of doing? So month one, say you did 200 samples. What did that kind of look like in terms of from sales, and what were you kind of expecting, or any other metrics you were kind of focusing on?
Yeah, so I think today we look at marketing as 3 buckets, and that's affiliate commissions, right? Which come off of net sales. So just something to keep in mind. Our marketing spend or our ad spend, and then the product seeding, right? And so product seeding, that would be for every 1 unit, that's the product cost and the shipping cost. So we take those 3 things and we essentially bucket it as marketing spend, right? So like those 3 things together are what we consider marketing spend. I think for most businesses, they'll be healthy, be profitable. You need to keep your marketing spend around 25% in total. So if you assume you're going to give around, again, commissions come off of net sales. So let's just say you assume you're going to give around 10% in commissions. You have about 15%. I think in the early days, you should spend that all on product seeding, right? So if you're going to do $100 in sales, you only gave away $15 worth of product samples, right? And that's how I would measure. Today, we try to give away only about 5% in product seeding. We try to spend 10% on the affiliate commissions, and we try to spend 10% on ads. But I think in the early days, it's all about the sample. So you should spend most of your budget on product samples. So you should be thinking, for every $100, was my product seeding cost about 15%? If so, yes, that's great. You should keep scaling. If not, you might need to rethink, right? You also need to be very focused on one hero product. I would not try to do, your entire catalog. It's very important to just be focused on one product and go hard there. Now, should ideally help you with inventory, cash flow, and understanding what your cost is going to be around product samples.
Yeah, amazing. And you kind of touched on my next question in terms of like, you already had traction before TikTok Shop. So what made you decide in terms of what products you were going to focus on to begin with? Was there any data behind it based on your other channel? What was kind of the thought in terms of putting together that strategy for the hero product, which you pushed?
Yeah, we just took our best-selling product from the other channels, which for us is like our morning multivitamin plus hair growth. I think you do want to think a little bit about the TikTok platform. You can use a tool like Fastmoss or Calidata to sort of look like what products are selling. I would think about, does this product feel like a good fit for TikTok? But I tell my team this in every facet of the business: winners win. So if you have a best-selling product on your other channels, you also want to get that big spillover of TikTok to the other channels, right? Like, and maybe we'll talk about that later, but like, I feel very strongly that TikTok drives velocities and awareness for Amazon or retail velocities. And so you want to have that same product everywhere. So if your bestseller product is the only one you have in Target, like that's really the one you want to be selling on TikTok, so you can catch, sort of the full effect of the flywheel.
Yeah, we'll definitely touch on that halo effect. So before we hit that, let's go back about creators. So again, obviously you started to sample out to creators, start to see some success. What was kind of the route in terms of, obviously you sent a sample out at the beginning stage? Were you briefing these creators? Were you kind of just hoping for the best? What did that kind of strategy look like then compared to what it looks to now?
Yeah, I mean, I think, creators are pretty sensitive about the content they put out, right? And like, they know what's authentic to them. So for us, we've worked with creators and influencers outside of TikTok shops for a long time, right? It's core to our general marketing strategy. So our approach is always like light touch, light guidance, right? So today we do, essentially what we've always done on TikTok, which is just like, hey, we sent you your product sample, and then we send a follow-up message like, hey, we sent your product sample. Here's like a brief, and we send like a nice PDF that looks good. And it's like, we'd love for you to say these couple things. It tastes delicious. It can grow your hair. You have to say this little bit of statement, but make what content you feel is most authentic to you. We'd love if you could talk about these things. I'm in a very compliance-heavy category, supplements, right? So like, here's the things my lawyers ask, please don't say these things. And that's just for the safety of everyone. We think like creators do the best content when you just give them a little bit of guidance, but you mostly let them choose what content feels authentic to them. That's just a philosophy we've always run with, and we still run with today.
Amazing. Cool. No, that sounds good. And with that as well, because again, obviously that we're talking about, like say, about 10,000 samples sending out per month. Obviously, we know that not every creator is going to create good content. Not every creator is going to make sales, right? So from your experience, again, over the data you've got, and again, for people listening out there so they understand the mechanisms behind it, how much would you say from your creators percentage-wise make sales is probably the best way I'm trying to put it. So in terms of like, say if you've got 100,000 creators, how many of them actually make sales and how many of them actually are like your top creators that push in the majority of GMV for the brand right now?
Yeah. So I would say I'm pretty aggressive on the samples today, right? So like the parameters of which I give away samples is much more aggressive than other people, right? Like if you've done $100 in GMV or there's a 40% chance that you're going to post when you get the sample, I'll probably give you a sample, right? Because for me, giving a product sample out is my cheapest way to acquire a new customer. Creator becomes a customer is great for me. And so I'm pretty aggressive. I would say probably about 50% of creators, maybe a little bit closer to 40% generate actual GMV. And I would say it's heavily disproportionately carried though by like the top 10% of my creators are generating most of the GMV, probably like 80%, right? It's almost the 80-20 rule. I think even a little bit tighter. I mean, today we never judge like what's good creative, right? There's plenty of million view videos on TikTok you would say is like not a good creative, but I think the algorithm's so unique. There's like a little component of randomness, which you just don't get on other channels. And so for us, we try very hard. We never judge people's content. The only time we do is if the content's not compliant or maybe they say something we really prefer they not say, we do reach out to them. And we find, most creators on TikTok are like very easy and nice to work with. Most of them will take it down. And so we haven't had a lot of trouble with that. For the most part, I would say it's a bit of a numbers game. The thing is those 40% of creators that generate GMV generally will cover the cost of like the 100% that you gave product samples to, right? So the economics still work out in that way. We find that even outside of TikTok, with just our general influencer program, we work with 10 influencers, like 3 will do really good. The others might not do so well, but the 3 will do so good that they cover the 10, right? So like, I think that's just sort of the game, right? Not every creator is going to have the perfect audience or have an audience that purchases a lot. And that's just part of how it goes.
Yeah, that's always going to be the case. And with all that in mind, has there been any surprises, whether good or bad, in terms of where creators performed, or like you say, some you thought, okay, this is never going to work, actually has worked for the brand?
Oh, I think there's something new every day, like some new TikTok trend. I think like, this will never work. And then it's great. Like one that really surprised me is like a lot of people do like the anti-hook where they're like, hey, don't buy this hair growth vitamin. And then they'll explain why you should buy it, and people love it because it's a little bit controversial, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's like a new trend every single month that I'm like, I don't think this is going to work for us. And then it's great, right? Like I didn't think some of the slideshow stuff that you get on TikTok, I never thought that would work. I think that works great for some people. There's a lot, right? There's just so many new trends on TikTok. It's hard to keep up. I think that's the thing for us. Like we try hard not to judge because you just never know what's going to be great. And you don't want to limit the brand from that. As long as it's not like crazy off brand and harmful to the brand, like I'm good with most content, running most content in ads, really let the algorithm figure out what's the best.
Amazing. Thinking with the creators then. So obviously you sent the sample out to them, they create that one piece of content. How do you then how do you then kind of continue to have that conversation with them, get them to be a part of the brand, get them to post more? What's kind of if there is a kind of like strategy behind that? So again, yes, obviously sending out samples is great, but in terms of like, say, if you do find the good creators that are working well, how do you kind of like, say, get them to continue to post more for the brand?
Yeah, so I think most brands do this today, but we run a Discord group, which we invite most of our creator partners with. If you make a video for us, we usually invite you. And I have a great team that is very great at making influencers feel great and running. We don't do any of the large scale promotions that maybe some of the other brands do where they're giving away really insane prizes. But we do contests every week, like whoever posts the most videos gets a $100 gift card and stuff like that. And we're pretty, but I think the team is just very good at making sure the influencers or the creators are taken care of, making sure they have the products or the content they need. We try to send out those creators all our new products so that they can help us test the product, but also give us real feedback on it. I do think for every brand, you want to get creators out of the TikTok messaging portal as fast as possible. TikTok knows my stance on this, but the portal is just not good. And the creators are just getting spammed in there. So it's really nice to get them in some other communication form. We love Discord, but we'll take anything. If people like email or texting or WhatsApp, we're happy to communicate anywhere the creator wants to.
And how big's your community right now on Discord?
We do keep it pretty small. You have to have generated a video. You have to get the link request. And then we have different tiers, right? So you can earn higher rewards the more GMV you generate. We try to incorporate as many creators as we can. We try to keep it a little bit more closed than other. It gets to a certain size, it becomes unmanageable. You got to worry about solicitation, stuff like that. So we try to keep it a little closed door, but we're opening it up more and more every day.
Nice. Perfect. That sounds good. And before I go to that question, how big is the team now that's kind of running the kind of TikTok marketplace ecosystem, would you say? And obviously, what kind of are the roles, if they are individual roles or if they are kind of across multiple just to get an idea, because then my next question on that was how many people are managing the community right now?
So I can sort of answer all that at once. Mary Roose has 230 employees. So like my org structure will be a little bit different. I have a supply chain department. So getting inventory to FBT is handled by supply chain, TikTok operations person, right? If you're a smaller brand, you might need that. And then in my org, I also manage all paid media. Like my paid media team handles TikTok shop ads, right? So I have a guy who does just regular TikTok, some Meta, and some TikTok shops, right? So those two roles, where if you're a smaller brand, you might have, I only have 3 people today. So I have one sort of TikTok manager. Her job is just manage the whole strategy on TikTok, as well as what campaigns we're going to run, the communication with our TikTok reps, stuff like that. And then I have 2 community managers. They're handling the Discord, the responses to affiliate messages or creator messages, all of that type of stuff. So I got a pretty lean team. We're pretty scrappy here. I can lean into other parts of the org for some of the support.
That's amazing. Like say you did over 4 mil, that's one thing, like the teams like that.
Yeah.
Yes, very scrappy and at the same time, very smart. And my question for you is, was there a reason why you wanted to keep it in-house? Or again, obviously, have you looked into like whether it's been consulting with other people, agencies, or was there any kind of way you thought, okay, let's just kind of get scrappy and figure it out?
Yeah, I mean, look, a lot of agencies I love, but just in general, Mary Roose, I think we're like a little bit anti-agency, right? We're heavy on in-house. I like to be able to call people to like, hey, we got to get something done. We're so good at like, we're 100% remote, but we're so good at like just getting together on a Zoom or Google Meet and just like getting something done fast. You want to stay ahead of the competitors. You want to gain market share. Like you got to keep that scrappiness where you can just like get together, dive in and do something. I think there's very few select agency partners that can do that very well, right? Managing so many different clients and, they have to share strategies. And so for us, I think we just like in-house a lot better. So like today on my whole org, for me personally, I have about 50 people. And so like, if we need support on influencers or paid media, we have a good amount of resources for that today. Mostly in-house for us.
Amazing. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Like I say, especially when you got the bigger org in terms of that, and you can like say you want to keep it scrappy and keep it lean, then yeah, it makes perfect sense. So yeah, that's good to know. And with that, 'cause again, we just touched on it's now deals for you days of time recording this. So how do you go about kind of campaign strategy? And again, what kind of support are you kind of leveraging from TikTok shop side of things? Internally, and just kind of break that down. These campaigns do create a lot of GMV. Do you kind of approach these any way differently than you do to other channels? And it'd be good to kind of get a breakdown in terms of obviously once the campaign is kind of been announced to obviously launch, how that kind of looks from your side of things.
Yeah, I mean, I think I love all my channel partners, Whole Foods or Amazon or everyone. But I think TikTok has a special place for me. Like, I think they're very also scrappy, right? Like they're a new platform. They want to gain market share. They want to acquire new customers. And so like they provide like pretty aggressive and helpful incentives, right? If you spend money on ads, they'll give you some ad money. If you spend money on discounts, they'll give you some discount money. I think like that type of collaboration is great. Yeah, I think there's still some challenges where like, the strategy to move sales can't always just be more discounts, right? It's got to get a little bit more creative than that. I think TikTok just like, keep evolving, keep learning, right? They do subscribe and save now. So for us, just like in terms of campaigns or just anything TikTok offers, we usually jump on it so quick. We haven't touched on this yet, but like, having a great partnership with TikTok is like one of the core reasons that we're live 24 hours a day on TikTok shops, primarily because, it helps me build like a good rapport with TikTok. I think for them, Douyin, which is the TikTok version, in China, like it's very heavily driven by live shopping. I think that's going to make a bigger impact in the US, maybe in the future, maybe not yet. But I like to be early, I like to help TikTok test things. And any opportunity they give us, we'll take, right? Deal for You Day, Super Brand Day campaign, new arrival campaign. Like I recommend for any brand, like all of these are very important. And if you have the opportunity, you should definitely jump on it. So.
And that segues well into TikTok Live. So yes, you're running 24 hours a day right now. So 24 hours. First of all, break down for us in terms of why you guys are 24 hours a day, and then let's kind of rewind it back in terms of why and how you got started on TikTok Live for brands out there who are thinking, okay, we just want to get at least an hour out there from a live perspective.
Yeah, for sure. I think for us, I mean, my team would say I'm always pushing for more. And so, it was 2 hours a day, then 4 hours a day. Eventually we just hit the maximum amount per day, which is 24 hours a day. I wanted to do like old school QVC style, like we're always live, we're always selling. I mean, for most brands, I don't recommend it. Some of the early morning hours, like the sales aren't the greatest, but I feel good about it, right? I think it's a talking point for the brand. It gives a lot of visibility. We get a lot of impressions and viewers on those lives. So I do think it's beneficial, but I think if you're an upcoming brand, like I don't have the slide here, but I had built a slide for a presentation as well as like for my board. my advice to any brand is like, just start somewhere with something. Like even for us, when we first started going live on TikTok, I would ask any employee that worked at the company, would you like to go live on our branded account from your house? And like I had team members that worked in email or SMS, like going live in their kitchen with 3 products for, 30 minutes or 90 minutes or 2 hours. And like, that's how we started. And so I would just get one employee and okay, they're going to go live every Monday. And then I was like, okay, anyone else? And so, someone else would be like, oh, I'm interested too. Great. You want to go live on Wednesdays? And so we were just adding days eventually. And then eventually we were like, okay, well, what's the next level? So we built like a little bit of a studio at our West Hollywood office. And I'm like, great, we're in Hollywood. So like, could we maybe get some actresses or some talent that would come in and do it? Because, these employees have other parts of the business they need to work on. And so for us, like, we just evolved it over time. Like the setup got better, the lighting got better, the mics got better. You don't have to be perfect on day one. Right? I think my advice to anyone is like, just get started and you can do that super scrappily. If you're the founder, just go live 30 minutes twice a week. Try to move 30 minutes to an hour. I think there's nothing more affordable than going live yourself because all you need is the iPhone. It doesn't have to be perfect. You just need to show your product and have the iPhone and talk about it a bit. So I think for us, the future is creators going live more often. Sort of working on like, what does that look like? And that's sort of like the next frontier for us.
Amazing. No, that makes sense. I think that definitely is the unlock right now. And again, when I speak to so many people, whether it's the founders, the brands in general, they're like, oh, I'm scared. I don't go. What am I going to talk to for that long period of time? And you just like, just go on, just talk. And then when they've done that first one, guess what? It gets easier and easier, right? But again, people, it's that initial moment in terms of turning on the camera and obviously you're in front of this audience and like, what do you do kind of thing? And I always say to people, look, once you've gone live, it's here today, gone tomorrow, right? So again, it's not the end of the world from that side of things.
100%.
And with the lives right now, because I say you are doing 24 hours, what are you guys kind of doing on an hourly basis in terms of like a revenue for the lives?
I'd have to check the latest numbers because it has been climbing. But I think on average across all the hours, we do like $500 plus GMV per hour. We get pretty profitable. I think for us, like we have a big vision where we want to be doing like $1,000 an hour. It's not the number one contributor to overall sales, but I do think like because we're live, so we've got just like a great team running it. I guess that would be one additional employee maybe for the team is I have like one TikTok live manager, but she also does all of the company's like organic social. So she's sort of pulling 2 gigs right now, the live management. And then today we're using external talent, which I would say like our contractors to do the live streams.
Amazing. Cool. And with that as well, like say 24 hours is obviously a long period of time, right? So what is the strategy for a live for the day and also for the week, right? Because again, obviously, I'm guessing you're going to get new customers or new users that don't know about the brand. Or again, you're going to probably get a lot of people who already know about the brand. So how do you keep it fresh? And like, what is that kind of strategy in terms of then you sit down with the team saying, okay, this is what we're going to do 24 hours. And how do you also find people to do that? You say the graveyard shifts in terms of like anything after that 12 a.m. kind of thing.
Yeah. So again, we have some great talent. So like each person does like sort of like a 2 to 4 hour shift that they like, and so we do have one person that does like, then we have 2 people that do the late night shift, right? It's probably the toughest shift, but they like it. So it's working out. For us, we're big on repetition, right? So I do think like if you came watch our live every day, it would probably get a bit stale to you because we are talking about a lot of the same stuff, right? Why you should buy it. I think the way we try to keep it a little bit fresh is the talent or the hosts are really good at interacting, right? So if you type in the chat or someone purchases, they're pretty great at speaking back to people, answering questions, messages like that. And that keeps it pretty fresh. I think for us, that's a challenge that we're trying to figure out and make better. Again, and this is true at any size, but like, you're always trying to evolve the strategy. So like today we do mostly the same thing, but like I have a great set, and like today on one side of it, it looks great. It looks like a kitchen. On the other side of that set, I have like a crazy like game show version of that. And so I think we're thinking about like, can we do like game show Thursdays or something where we like give away a lot of prizes and do something fun? They have like a mega live once a week. Right. And so like, that's just part of always trying to evolve the strategy. So today, I think it's a lot of repetition. And we think that's good because that's what helps customers purchase, right? I think customers have to hear a message a few times before they really like, okay, I know this product, it does this. And so we're just trying to build that with the live stream, but keeping it fresh is something I think we're still trying to make better every day.
Yeah. And that's being for it, right? And again, this is why I always make it clear to brands. I think a lot of brands are still in kind of that space where they think, oh, well, if I go live and don't make sales, doesn't make any sense. But again, I always make it clear in terms of like, it's that repetition, that impressions, getting people into the brand ecosystem, right? It's like a TV ad, right? You might see a TV ad 10, 12, 15 times, right? And again, being able to go live at a click of a button, just gives you that opportunity to obtain new customers. And again, I feel like more brands are starting to understand that more as well. So again, obviously it does become a little bit more easy for them to do it. But again, I think it's still like, because again, TikTok Lives is still, to me, I think still in its infancy and there's still
For
such
sure.
a long way to go, right? So again, it's just figuring out how they can do it at a cost-effective way. I think that's definitely the thing that comes up a lot from when we speak to whether it's brands, agencies, operators, and that side of things.
Yeah, completely agree. I think it's still very early for lives, but I think most money in business is made if you're early, right? So like now's the time to
Yeah,
check it out, take advantage before everyone's doing it, right? So I highly recommend at least jumping in a little bit.
yeah, exactly that. And again, just give everyone who's listening as well. So again, obviously you've got the set, you've got someone who's hosting. On each live, is there any other team members involved or around? So again, people kind of picture it. Because again, obviously, when someone will see your live, they'll just obviously see the host. But what kind of happens behind that live?
Today, no. We had considered having like one host, one sort of producer, right? So that person could help. But I think, we just lucked out. We got some really great hosts, so they're fine. And we're like pretty authentic, right? If they need to step away to grab a water or use the restroom or whatever, like they just tell the audience, like we're live 24 hours a day. I think like that, I always say this about marketing, but like the thing that sells these days the best is just being real.
Yeah.
And like, that's what we are, like, hey, we're live. Yeah, we're selling you something, but like, it's a real person. They might need to step away. They got to grab a snack. Like it's all good. And I think the audience is like, wow, that's like refreshing. And so I think that works. So
Yeah.
it's only ever usually at the like live streaming station. It's only ever the host usually. On rare occasion might be a producer if we need to fix up the laptop or camera or lighting or whatever. But usually just one person at a time.
Easy. So literally they hit go live and then they're live and then like say it's that real authenticity side of it as well, which again makes it so easy. And again, brands are thinking we need this big studio, but like I say, you could literally just go live in your home, in your warehouse, whatever you can. It's just such an easy way to win right now. And again, it's just so low lifts, low cost, and low effort, I think personally.
Yeah, I agree. I think one of the greatest live streaming brands on TikTok Shop's Micro Ingredients. Like they were just going live out of the warehouse and like it was so authentic. Like they were at the warehouse, people were packing orders. So yeah, learned a lot from that.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And a question I got a few people wanted me to ask you as well in terms of TikTok Shop being more of a discounted kind of platform. How do you as a brand right now kind of manage obviously doing discounts, not being kind of classed as a discount kind of brand, and how much of the time are you actually doing like a certain discount on the platform?
Yeah, so I think we discount semi-frequently. I think what we're really pivoting the platform to, right, is I think a lot of channels sort of fit together, right? So I'd say like maybe your Amazon and your D2C business, right? Those are going to have very similar pricing, very similar discount structure. For retail, you have like FDM, which is like food, drug, and mass. So that's like a Target and a Walmart and a CVS. And those might have similar discount or pricing strategy or even products. Right? Then you have like natural channel in retail, which would be like a Whole Foods and a Sprouts. But then you have club, right? Which is like a Costco and a Sam's Club. And, those are sort of the holy grail for most categories. Those are the big volume channels. I think TikTok represents a very similar channel to club, where like I think it's appropriate to have like a different size of your product, maybe a bit larger size or a multi-pack. And you give discounts on that type of product, same as Sam's Club or Costco does, right? They have a great price, but you got to buy a bit more of the product, right? You might have to buy 44 ounces instead of 30 ounces. For me, I really equate the strategy on TikTok to similar to a club strategy, and I'm really trying to sort of marry the pricing. So we're on sale, but we try to make the sale fair, not undercut our other channels, right? The only time that I think the discount is very nice or very great for the customer is when TikTok's incentivizing and giving some additional discounts. I think other channels and retail partners or sales channel partners, even like Amazon, they don't usually fund much of the discount for you, right? So I think that's just a competitive advantage TikTok's using. We lean in where we can. But I think today, like the core of the strategy, I want to have my club strategy, like what I sell to Sam's Club and Costco, be similar to what I'm selling on TikTok.
Nice. No, amazing. That makes perfect sense. And with that, again, a good segue into halo effect. So again, there's always this kind of buzzword in terms of the halo effect. Obviously, if someone sees me on TikTok, they might buy somewhere else. So in your own words and in terms of your own experience, is that true? How do you measure it? And everything else that kind of goes into the quote unquote halo effect.
Yeah, I think it's undeniable there's a huge halo effect from the platform, right? Like the way I view it is, Meta and TikTok, they're the new TV. Right? Like lower funnel marketing spend. It's a little bit upper funnel marketing spend, right? Because you're just generating so much awareness on these platforms now, right? Like that's how people, and most of it's not like they saw your ad, they clicked it and they went and bought. they saw it and they kept scrolling to the next thing. But now, they may have saw your ad 3 or 4 or 5 videos on TikTok Shop. Now, when they walk into Target, they're going to be like, oh yeah, I remember this multivitamin. I saw it on TikTok, right? And so Amazon, they do this study every year, but I think the one they gave me this year, like, know that the product exists and know that they want it, right? And Amazon thinks in general, the customer had to see the product 12 to 14 times before they go to Amazon search for it, right? And so on Meta and TikTok, and I think especially for TikTok Shops, like, you're building those amount of times they saw the product before they know they want or need it, right? And so I think that's where the halo effect comes in. I do think, look, I own every incrementality tool under the sun. They'll all tell you something a little bit different. I think it's tough to 100% quantify the halo effect. That's why I tell every brand, like, make sure you're profitable on TikTok Shops, because if you're generating that halo effect and awareness and you're making money on TikTok Shop, you're invincible. The halo effect is just the cherry on top. You can't lose, right? So I think it becomes dangerous when you're like running the channel at a loss, specifically for the halo effect to drive your velocities everywhere. Like for a new brand or even a mid-sized brand, I would never recommend that. As long as you stay profitable, the halo effect is just the cherry on the top.
Yeah, that sounds perfect. So let's talk about profitability, because take me back in terms of, were you guys profitable from what kind of day, month, how that kind of looked, and how have you kind of been able to, at that kind of scale, remain profitable? How do you kind of measure that and, like, say, continue to be profitable at scale?
Yeah, so I think for us, we were profitable, I would say, from day one. I think, again, I'm a bigger brand, so I'm cheating a bit, right? I have some brand awareness before I even started on TikTok Shops, right? So like, that's definitely a benefit that I'm aware of. I think it's not necessary maybe to be profitable on the first day, right? Like, if you can be, you should be. But I think the most important thing is to understand where you're at in terms of profitability, right? Like when I wake up in the morning, I have what I call an operational P&L for yesterday. It tells me, what was our gross, what were our returns, what are our net sales, what's our product cost on what we sold yesterday, what was shipping and fulfillment, how much money did we spend on ads, how many product samples did we give out, what was affiliate commission. And I know yesterday, did we make money? And I think the first thing for any brand, did you make money? And then you can tweak things, right? Like, okay, we broke even, but we overspent on marketing. Great. Can you dial marketing back 1 or 2 points? And now you're profitable 2%, right? There's things you can change, but you have to know what's happening. So I do think for TikTok Shops especially, and I think it's true for every sales channel, you got to know what's happening before you can really understand if you need to be profitable. I think for most brands, just the way the game is today for TikTok Shops, it's probably going to be hard to be profitable in the first 1 to 4, maybe 1 to 6 months, right? Like, I think you have to overinvest in the product samples and getting the platform up. If by month 4 to 6, profitability doesn't seem in sight, I do think you need to really rethink the strategy, right? Like, I think by month 6, you should only be running a TikTok program that's profitable, in my opinion.
Perfect. Yeah. And with that as well, because I say if brands are kind of getting to that month 4, 6 and not profitable, do you think it's time for them to, would you say, kind of like say, we tweak the strategy or kind of give up? Because again, there's always some brands that I speak to all the time saying, oh, we tried it for 3 months or we tried it for 6 months and basically it just didn't work. What would you kind of say to them brands that are kind of maybe, like say, they've put all that effort into, like say, sampling, they've got content already out there, they maybe getting some sales, but it's not where they want to be. What would you say to them in terms of like next steps from a TikTok shop perspective?
Yeah, I think this one's tough, right? Like, everyone can make TikTok shops successful, but it does require elbow grease. I do think if you're starting TikTok shops today, it's no longer like get rich quick. I do think the strategy was easier 18 months ago, right? It's going to take some elbow grease. It's okay at month 4 to say, hey, it's not working, we're going to give up. But you got to have a long list of what you tried, right? Like, what were the parameters of creators you gave out? How many creators did you reach out? It's sort of Gary Vee style where he's like, oh, your content didn't work. You only did 100. Why didn't you do 1,000? I do think for like creators, like if you haven't reached out to 50,000 creators, you haven't given away 1,000 units, there's probably some benchmarks. I don't know for every brand, but you want to make sure you tried a lot of things. Like, did you try, when you reached out to 5,000 creators and no one responded, did you change your outreach script? Did you try something new? If creators were getting your product and not making videos, did you change like what your follow-up message was or how many times you followed up, or did you change the brief of the product? Like, you have to have given like a really great goodwill effort. I think a lot of people are like, oh yeah, I reached out to people, I gave samples and nothing happened. Well, on the 10th day when nothing was happening, like, what did you change to make it better? I think that's a question like I always ask the team. Like, it's fine if it's not working, but what are we doing about it?
Yeah.
For any brand, you want to make sure you tried a lot of stuff. You tried different content hooks. Like, actually, we're going to tell people to try this. Or as soon as you have a really good video, you should take that video. You should start saying, here's a great example of a video. the rest of the creators that got your product, right? It's not just a set it and forget it. It requires a lot of, you got to think strategically, you got to be tactical, you got to get in there. As long as you do that, I think it's fine to give up if it doesn't work for your brand, but I just think any brand today can make it work, right? Like most of the big brands are not there yet. This is the time where like most of the money, have Dove on, like if you're a men's or women's like soap or beauty, like Dove's not there. Like none of the big guys are there in most of the spaces.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I think brands still think, oh, it's too late. But like you say, there's the big enterprise brands are not on the platform right now. So again, I wouldn't say it's easy. If you started 18 months ago, it was a lot easier in terms of creating stuff like that. But today is the day to kind of get started. And again, to build up that momentum, build up the reps and start to just figure out, because it just takes momentum. And once you get it going, it just starts to work really well from that side of things.
Yeah, just so 1% better every day. That's all it takes. So
yeah, that's exactly that. And take me back again, obviously, I like you said about your daily kind of P&L sheet. Do you use that across all your channels or is it just TikTok shopping? How does that look? Again, if someone's listening right now, they want to get this set up, how do you put that together in-house?
Yeah, so I do for every channel. I think retail is the most difficult, right? More sporadically, it's a little bit different. But for all the e-com channels, for sure, Amazon, Shopify, TikTok shops, like when I wake up in the morning, I know the P&L for yesterday or for the last 7 days or last 30 or whatever. I have a larger data pipeline today. So a lot of that data we're piping out of those channels via API. But we've always been scrappy. Like when TikTok shops first came out and there wasn't an API connection, I would have someone manually go into TikTok shops and collect the data every day in the morning.
I love that.
Ideally, they get online before me, which is quite hard. But ideally, they get online, they grab the data manually. What were the sales? What were the discounts? And so like, there's almost no excuse, right? Like someone can do it. It can take 10 minutes. Even, if I have to do it myself on holidays or whatever, I would, like I think like having the P&L is just so beneficial. Like even got to get scrappy, do a manual. Long term, there's a lot of great data providers. Like today, we use one of my favorites for like Amazon is we use IntentWise. I think they're like $1,000 and you can get every single piece of data from Amazon under the sun. So like you can easily build like an automated dashboard out of that data. And there's like some new ones up and coming now for TikTok, even though it's a little bit newer, right? And so like long term, you can always automate, but I think there's still some data sources I collect today manually because they don't have a great connection. So like no excuse. Any size, you can get the data. You just got to put in a little bit of work for it.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think that's where I personally think it's just lazy, because the fact if you can just go in and look at the numbers, right? Yes, obviously AI and obviously automation is great, but even if you're doing that, you're not actually seeing the data. Sometimes you kind of just, it's coming through and it's kind of like hitting through in Slack, but it's kind of like ignoring it. But if you are pulling it and you kind of see, oh, GMV was this today, but obviously we set out more samples again, you can start to see the patterns yourself rather than, like I say, just it pulling through manually. So again, I agree. I think definitely doing it daily is a great way to do it if you're just a brand kind of getting started with it, because then again, you can see what's working, what's not working. And again, you can be more proactive from that side of things, I believe.
100%.
Cool. So in terms of, I always think now TikTok shops become more of a pay to play kind of platform. So we touched a little bit on ads, but kind of walk me through in terms of how your ad strategy looks right now. Are you guys fully GMV max, still ads manager, what your spend looks like, ROAS, if you care to break that down? So yeah, let's just go into them kind of numbers.
Yeah. I mean, I think, TikTok announced this soon, but soon the only type of ad will be GMV max. I think they feel so good about their algorithm, right? So today we have a little bit of our, manual ads, and then we're still mostly GMV max already. So it's not a huge change for us. I think the algorithm's just like so good at knowing like what ads should it spend money, what video should it spend money behind and drive views for. And like, I just don't think there's any reason to fight it,? So for us, strategy is usually we ask most creators, hey, we give 20% commission. If we run ads on your video, we only give 15%, like just a heads up. But if you want to, you can turn your Spark code on and our GMV Max campaigns will pick it up. So we're doing that today for everyone. And we sort of let the algorithm decide like what videos should get the ad dollars. Makes no creative decision on like, is this a good content? Should we put ad dollars behind it? Like we just let the campaigns decide. TikTok's going the way we were going to go anyway. So that makes sense. I think that's fine. I mean, again, for us, less about the ROAS target, more about like what I call like TROMs, right? Total return on marketing spend. I'm really for the ad spend. I really want to be at about 10% of my gross sales. I want to be spending on ads. I'm generally monitoring that in higher, more aggressive periods that might go from $10 up to $15 at the very high end if I'm very aggressively trying to grow sales. But I always just look at it at what percent of total sales am I spending on ads? And usually about a 10 is what I'm looking at.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's where, again, I think a lot of brands and people getting started on TikTok shop, they kind of take it for granted because, again, like I say, I think GMV Max is going the right way because, again, the platform is so smart. But I think where a lot of people sometimes get confused and think it's either working or not working is because they look at that ROI number and they say, oh, this ROI is a 3, a 4, or whatever that number looks like. Let's either keep spending or not. But then when they actually come to the end of the month and they kind of break down in terms of like, whether it's overhead, their cost, all that side of things, they're like, oh, we're actually not making money. We need to shift it and stuff like that. So again, I think that's definitely a situation where it's an educational part of it. And from your perspective, were you always looking at your ROAS, or was that kind of something that you developed over time?
It's twofold. Look at the ROAS, but for like my TikTok ad manager, right? Like my employee who manages TikTok ads, like ROAS, in my opinion, is a good indicator of like what videos or what ads are working, right? Because it's like, it's apples to apples, right? This one has a 3 ROAS, this one has a 4 ROAS. You should spend more money on the 4 ROAS. For him to determine like which videos should get more of the spend as the algorithm's figuring it out and he's supporting, like I think that makes a lot of sense. But for me, it's always, even for the entire business, right? Like I wake up today, I look at the TROMs for the whole business yesterday, all the sales we did against all my marketing spend, not just ad spend, but influencers and content I had to make for ads and all those things that I consider marketing. If the TROMs is good, we're going to spend more money today than we did yesterday. And if it's bad, we're going to spend less. I think the winning strategy is that the TROMs is good and sustainable. Like you just market more and you drive more sales everywhere. So I think I apply that to the TikTok shops, but also to the entire business.
I like that. And are you making them decisions on a daily basis? Let's say, for example, like it dropped like a little bit like yesterday. Would you then kind of tweak it straight away? Or would you give it like a 3-day, 2-day kind of run to kind of see if there's kind of like a variable, like, I don't know, it's 4th of July today for our time record or something like that?
Yeah.
Or what do you make in terms of that side of things?
Like it's a holiday weekend, so we'll probably be less harsh on the ROAS targets. We have the ROAS targets sort of built by day because we understand seasonality and we just have like a lot of historical data, right? So it's pretty, like today's ROAS target might be less than what yesterday's was because today was a holiday and I expect less people to shop. So I sort of already know that and the dashboards will show. So, I say we give it we're pretty good at making decisions every day, but we'll give it a little bit of grace period if something special is happening for sure.
Amazing. Perfect. That sounds good. And I know you guys have done quite a few. So for people who are not listening and kind of hoping to do one of them in the near future, what does that look like? Whether it's like performance, cost, if you want to break down, and what that kind of brings to the brand where you run these big moments on TikTok Shop.
Yeah, it's very similar, I think, to like an Amazon Prime Day, which are also very bullish on. But like we ran our big Super Brand Day was in January of this year. That is our best seasonal month. But like in that week of Super Brand Day, we did about $4 million in GMV, like just for the Super Brand Day week.
Wow.
You do have to invest more in marketing, right? Like TikTok uses Super Brand Day as a way to help you grow on the platform. In return, they do want some out-of-home marketing, right? Like we did New York City subway wrap steps. We did some out-of-home billboards, right? So you have to partner with them. You have to have an event and do some influencer stuff, right? That's required. I would say, look, on an average month, we're trying to be north of 20% contribution margin. I would say when you run Super Brand Day, you're going to get a lot more sales velocity, but it's going to be a little bit harsher margin, keep discounts a bit high. You have to spend on marketing. So, I think for us, we're seeing around 14% contribution margin that month, even with a big Super Brand Day. So I think it's still possible. You should just expect to invest more in marketing and just support of the deal. My opinion, though, for everyone is like, if you get a chance to run a Super Brand Day, 100% take it. I think just like the momentum it builds, the partnership with TikTok it builds is just like so valuable. Like, highly recommend it to every brand.
Yeah. And I think, like say, momentum, once you kind of got the momentum right, it's all about keeping it right. So if you can get it, sustain it, then it kind of keeps you at that kind of level, which is great. Okay, cool. So I want to kind of segue into kind of like mindset, mistakes, and the kind of scaling learnings on the platform. So from what you've seen, what's one mistake that you see, obviously you see to brands, speak to operate stuff. What's one mistake you see brands making on TikTok Shop right now?
I think we talked about it a little bit, but usually it's not giving enough product samples away, right? Like to give away 50 or 100 and they're like, well, my ads aren't working. You don't have enough creative to be running ads generally. I think another one I see, which is actually surprising sometimes, but I don't think people understand the rules around content on TikTok product. And so like a lot of brands have terrible main product images, or they don't know that they can put images in the product description. Videos sell products, but like you do need to optimize the product page, same as any other channel on earth, right? Retail channels, like you have a good main image. It explains to people why they should buy the product, what's great about it. So I think those two are probably the big ones that I see most commonly, is like people don't spend enough time on those two things. Not enough product samples, not good product content.
Yeah. And it's such an easy win in terms of like getting your product page right. I feel like so many brands literally just upload it from Shopify. It's just such an easy unlock, right? Where again, brands just kind of fail to kind of get it right.
Yeah.
What would you say has kind of been the hardest lesson you found in terms of scaling to the levels you kind of got to on the platform?
I think, and this is advice I give to a lot of people, but getting distracted, right? Like there's 1,000 roads, there's 1,000 strategies. I'm sharing some here. Other brands will have different strategies. I think like you got to pick the few that you believe in, and especially the ones that start showing some green lights for you. You just need to double down on those, right? I think like as a business, not just for TikTok Shops, but for every channel, like there's always a shiny new object. You could do this thing, or you could add more products, or you could focus on bundles. Like I think just pick a few strategies you feel very great at and just do those very well versus trying to do everything, because there's always something new coming along every day. It's easy to get distracted.
Yeah, no, you're very right with that. And if you would start all over again, like say a brand is coming to you and saying, look, Jay, give us that one piece of golden nugget that you would have done something different. But if you would start today, what would you do different on the platform?
I mean, we had good success, so I probably wouldn't have changed much, right? I think the strategy ended up playing out pretty good.
Not bad, right?
If you're a new brand, it's not a set it and forget it channel. You're going to have to put in some hard work. And I think the big one is finding the creators that you deserve to win with is probably my number one recommendation, right? You got to spend time searching out creators that are small and talking about the same space. How do you connect with them? How do you build a relationship? How do you grow with them? I think that's a strategy that makes money, is authentic, and ultimately can win for you. It's harder. You got to put in a lot of elbow grease, but I think that's the one that will be successful.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. Okay, cool. So last for you, Jay,
in
terms of looking ahead. So where are you guys doubling down on TikTok Shop in the next 6 to 12 months? What's kind of next for Mary Roose?
Yeah, the big one, I think the biggest thing is just creator lives, right? Like, can we create a team or a network of creators that will go live as well? Maybe not 24 hours a day, but for a few hours each day or a couple times a week. So I think for us, moving a little bit, not away from, like we still want to do plenty of creator videos, but how do we invest more in creator lives, I think is something that we're looking at next. That's probably the most exciting thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. Again, I think, because I say TikTok Shop or just, so again, like you said previously as well, if TikTok Shop are recommending something, just go all in on it, because again, you're going to probably reap the rewards a lot quicker, right? Rather than trying to go against the grain I always recommend.
For sure.
Amazing. Jay, this has been great. So final one, anything else that we've not touched on that you feel that you want to kind of just give right now in terms of like, if this was your last chance to kind of give advice on TikTok Shop, what would be the kind of like going out speech, final words?
Yeah, I touched on this a little bit before, but I think again, like it's just get started, right? Like the hardest part is just get started. And I think once you do, like, it's a great platform with great momentum, and you'd be surprised, like, where you can go with it. So highly recommend just dive in as soon as you can. Make sure you're very conscious of your operational P&L, but like just get started, whether that's on the platform, with lives, with giving out product seeding, like just get going and the momentum will come. So
amazing, James. It's been a pleasure having you on this. So for anyone who wants to speak with you, find out more about you, where can everyone go and find you?
Yeah, I mean, I think LinkedIn's the best place. I think I had a post about this recently, but like I'm always open to help any brand, any person that needs it or wants advice. So feel free to reach out to me. Always happy to help.
Amazing. Thanks for that, Jay. So yeah, this is another great session, great podcast. Again, we're going to keep bringing more of these and speaking with the operators who are actually doing this, getting it done and breaking down the nuggets, nothing held back on this. So thank you all for listening, and look forward to speaking to you on the next one.
Thank you.